Hi, welcome to my baby slippers. I'm Lily Strong from the blog Lily Strong, and I'm really glad that you joined me today. This is a safe place where we discuss all the intricate difficulties of healing, and that can be from abuse, misuse, just cruelty. There's a lot of things that wound us and hurt our souls, and healing is tricky. It's difficult. It's not it's not a quick trip. It is a long journey. It is a true peregrination. And today I wanted to talk about how I have been dealing with some pretty heavy times of depression and grief. In this past year, it's been insane, and I've learned that usually if you're getting depressed about something, it's because something has happened. Somebody said something or an event occurred. Maybe you lost a job, or a friend was mad at you, or your boyfriend got in an argument with you. There's a reason, there's a catalyst for it all to start. And that's a hard thing, right? But that is not the hardest part of healing. It's not that original hurt. It's not that original wound. It's the middle part of healing. It is so messy, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And it's very unpredictable, which is something that kind of drives me nuts. I like to kind of be in control. I would like to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to deal with this feeling today, but my body doesn't work that way. My brain does not work that way. So, yeah, I have to learn how to roll with the punches and kind of get through the messy middle. So, if you've listened to any of my other podcasts or read any of my articles, you'll know a lot of my stories have metaphors that revolve around the beach. I even have like tons of beach pictures and sunset pictures. I've just always loved the beach. I feel like the sand and the salt are therapeutic, and the rhythm of the crashing of waves. I can't even say enough about that. There is just something so intensely grounding with nature about that. There's that rhythm, there's that steadiness. And especially for somebody who might be having panic attacks or problems with anxiety, that rhythm is just very soothing. And if you don't have the opportunity to be near a beach, you can get these wonderful sound machines now, and you can even look at videos on YouTube. They'll have them of just sounds, and you can actually just play hours and hours of waves crashing, and it's really nice. So, anyways, I've always loved the ocean, even when I was a little girl. The smell of salt, the chatter of the seagulls flying up ahead, and the feeling of sand squishing between my toes. It's just magic. And I grew up coming to the beach. My big extended family used to rent a big house on the beach every summer. And all summer long, I'd splash and swim along the coastline with my brother, my sister, and all my cousins. There were there were a bunch of us kids, so we never ran out of things to do or people to play with. It was like heaven on earth for a kid. I learned how to make seashell sculptures using a whole lot of Elmer's glue and a whole lot more patience. I learned how to do cartwheels out on the soft sand. I swam in the ocean like a dolphin. But one day, you know how some childhood memories just kind of get seared into your memory? And one day I waded out a little too far and a wave caught me off guard. Let's call it a rogue wave, because that makes it sound more sinister and foreboding, right? A rogue wave surprised me. And it didn't just surprise me and knock me down. and it like held me down underwater. So suddenly, without warning, I was under the water, tumbling, spinning, disoriented. I didn't know which way was up anymore. The world had just become bubbles and noise and panic. And this lasted for about 17 hours. Okay, not really, but it seemed like it. It seemed like it was 17 hours. And then it passed. The wave rolled by and I found my footing again. My body just seemed to instinctively know which way was up all of a sudden. Now my hair was plastered to my face like a soggy octopus was hugging my head. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it was louder than the waves, but I was okay. I had just gotten caught in the middle of the wave, the very messy middle. And that's the part where you might lose sight of which way is up. And you might feel overwhelmed with the muffled yet incredibly loud noise and all the panic that is rushing around you. That image has stayed with me my whole life, and lately I feel like I'm actually living it. It's not just a metaphor anymore. It just seems like that's what my life has been. So, okay, we have to go back a few years. Christmas time is one of my favorite times of the year. I've always loved Christmas. And if I kind of look back and count through the different Christmases I've had recently, it really shows a story, really shows a pattern. Not one that I like either, but it's part of the messy middle, part of what I have to get through to move on. So back in, let's say, 2019, I was still living in Texas with my husband and my 3 kids. And we were living with his mom, my mother-in-law. I lived with my mother-in-law for 20 years. And I did all the decorating and all the wrapping and all the cooking and all the cleaning, and it was so much. Too much, really. But I didn't see it then. I thought that was just life. I didn't realize I was in the middle of something then. And I didn't realize it was about to totally change. The next year is Christmas 2020, and of course we all know what happened then. COVID. It was the year that we were all socially distancing and locked down and completely isolated in our little family bubble. Because of the lockdown, it was already unrecognizable from any other Christmas I had experienced. I didn't have the typical Christmas work parties, or I didn't even go shopping. I didn't get to enjoy the sights and sounds in the stores. And then my brother died from COVID on Christmas Eve. And that wave came out of nowhere and it knocked me breathless. It was a crazy Christmas. The next year, Christmas 2021, and my life was completely unrecognizable. By then I had discovered my husband had betrayed me in ways I still can't completely comprehend. And I had moved to California with my youngest son, leaving my older 2 kids in Texas. And don't think I'm a bad mom. One was still in college, and one had graduated college and was just starting a new job. But I had to leave. I had to move, and I moved closer to my family, to my parents, because they needed some help. And I was just trying to find my way up again, find my footing. And right on cue, I then caught COVID myself. And it hit exactly on the anniversary of my brother's death. So there's a little bit of leftover trauma from that. What can I say? It felt like grief and loneliness joined forces against me. Have you ever felt that way? Like when you're already down, you suddenly just feel lonely. Like you're all alone. Like you have no one out there. And so this is how I was feeling. I was very sick, very isolated, very alone. And it was so very, very messy. Okay, then the next Christmas things are looking better. The next Christmas is even better because in 2023 I had a light shining on me finally. I had fallen in love. Jonathan had entered my life. Jonathan has changed my life. He's a good man, kind, generous, full of music and life and laughter. His favorite saying was, "It's just easy to say yes." So he would say, "Hey, do you want to go to Las Vegas this weekend?" And I'd go, I don't know. Should I? Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should be doing some chores. And he's like, why? Why? You need to just say yes. Go have fun. Enjoy life. Because before you know it, it's too late. And so for the first time in so long, I was living and it was joyous. I felt full of joy. Jonathan and I went to concerts and plays. We went to see the Nutcracker. We went to different concerts, just things that I hadn't done before. He gave me presents, actual presents. And it wasn't like a vacuum cleaner. It was like thoughtful things. Like I'm a big tennis fan. So he got me a tennis bracelet. In fact, he's given me 3 tennis bracelets, and each one is just beautiful. And I can't tell you what it feels like at 54 to feel like I was cherished. Just because he knew I liked something and he got me a gift to reflect that. It was like I'd finally made it to the shore, you know? But those waves, they have their own rhythm. And they knocked me down again. So last year at Christmas time, my beautiful man Jonathan, he suffered a stroke and had a lot of other health problems connected with that. And my life became hospital hallways and beeping monitors and hope that would swing like a pendulum each day. My Christmas decorations that year were hospital garlands and twinkling lights strung around IV poles. The nurses are amazing and they do so much, but you can only do so much to brighten up an ICU. I lived in pause mode for 9 months, stuck between relapse and recovery, between fear and faith. I would take Jonathan home, and then he'd end up back in the hospital. He'd end up in a rehab hospital to get better, and then end up in the hospital again. It was never ending. And it was a very messy middle. And my heart breaks for the struggles that he had to go through. I mean, it's easy for me to say it's a messy middle. He had to experience it. And now I'm back at Christmas time again, and now I'm alone. Jonathan has passed away. He passed away August 29th. And I feel adrift again because grief is, again, very unpredictable. It's very messy, and the middle, you just don't know when you're going to get out of it. It's been a couple months since Jonathan passed away, but I think about him every day. I think about his laugh. I think about his presence. He was 6'5". He was this tall, tall man. And he had these very gentle blue eyes that would twinkle when he left. And with him gone, there's a silence in the air that feels heavy. I'm not getting my phone calls, my texts, because even when he was in the hospital, I would go see him every day pretty much, and then we'd usually talk in the evening. He would always make sure I left before it got dark. He wanted me to get home safely. Always thinking about me. I mean, I was cherished. And it's something that is so magical, and I doubt I'll ever feel again. But I guess I kind of understand that saying of it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. Like I said, his presence in my life has changed me for good. So now I don't get the phone calls, I don't get the texts, I don't get the funny little memes. And that silence is now deafening. And then I look at the last 6 years, and it is mind-boggling to me how much has changed. 6 years ago, I was in Texas, married to an abusive person with my 3 kids. And now look at what has happened. I just don't even recognize myself. But I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still rising, one small wave at a time, even when they do knock me down a lot. Depression for me feels a lot like being caught in that wave as a little girl. It's the part where you can't tell which way is up, you know? Everything's murky and loud, and you're just trying to find air. That's the messy middle of depression. And what's really hard is it's the part no one likes to talk about. Because you're not at rock bottom anymore. But you're not okay either. You're functioning, sort of, but inside you're just treading water. And when you're grieving, that messy middle can last a long time. It's not neat. It's not neat. It's not linear. Some days I float. Some days I sink. But eventually the wave passes. You find your footing again. And I can't tell you how glad I am for all the times that Jonathan told me it's easier to just say yes. Go and live. I had no idea I would only have 2 years with him. But I am so glad that in those 2 years, we lived, we loved. We went to a fair, like a carnival type thing. And I remember we were walking and we stopped for a second and we were just looking at each other and we were smiling, and these people walked by and they said, "Oh my gosh, you guys are so cute." Actually, we got that comment a lot. We were both very happy, smiley people, and we would smile at each other all the time. I mean, I'd walk into a room and his face would light up and he would say, "Wow, that's amazing." And that's not something that you can put into words. It's not something you can bottle up and sell. It's just an amazing feeling. And losing it is heartbreaking. So his death, it's been a few months. So it's not that initial shock. But I am not okay. I am in that messy, messy middle. And the middle is the time to really surround yourself with the right people. And I know I am incredibly blessed. I have such a great support system. I don't know why I'm so lucky. I just have amazing people in my life. And actually, I've interviewed two of my absolute best friends, and you're going to hear them next week. We're going to talk about how they learned about my abuse and their reactions and how it's affected them. But I want to share a couple things right now about how they've helped me during this very big mess of grief that I'm experiencing right now. Because I have had people say, "What do you need? What do you need?" And I don't know. I don't know what I need. I'm just tossing in the waves. So first, my sister cousin, Judy. She just never assumes that I'm done healing. And I can't tell you what a massive relief that is. Whereas I feel like I need to smile and laugh lightly and just move on with other people, I always know that she doesn't expect that at all. And in fact, she's going to call me out for it. If I'm trying to put on a brave face, she knows. Instead, she asks me how I'm really doing, and then she waits for an honest answer. Jonathan passed away, and I'm not okay. And no matter how many times you hear that it's okay to be not okay, so often people get uncomfortable when you show how messy your feelings are. But not Judy. She knows I'm not okay. She expects that I'm moving forward 2 steps and then 1 step back, because she knows life is messy and grief is messy. And when I complain and say, "Oh, it's taking so long," she's like, "It's a journey. It's not a quick weekend trip." It truly is that peregrination. I think that grief is kind of like a spider web. And if you've ever seen a spider web that's drawn in a book, like Charlotte's Web, it's like perfect and it's pretty and it's even and it's got like perfect symmetry. You can almost see it sparkling in the morning dew. It's a pretty spider web. But you know what? That's not what spider webs really look like. I prefer the look of a spider web that's been drawn by a kid. A little kid who has just grasped a broken crayon in their fist, and they have just scribbled and scribbled overlapping lines, heavy crayon in places so hard that it actually like rips the paper. That's awesome, even when it's out of control. I think that's kind of how grief has to be. It can't be pretty and linear and neat and perfect. It's not the way it works. It's gotta be that fisted crayon just pushing down hard, flying right off the page because it's so out of control. Because that's where so much of healing has to take place. I really think it's kind of a requirement. So I am a fairly logical person. I like to plan and make checklists and be organized. Well, sometimes. Mostly. But I've learned that when I'm in that mode, I may be productive doing things, but I'm not paying attention to my feelings. I'm certainly not trying to be open to reframe my thoughts. And really, that's what grief is all about, right? And I'm talking about any grief, dealing with a loss it's big to you. A friendship, a job, a pregnancy, the death of a loved one. You will never forget that loss, and you will always miss part of it, but healing means we're learning to live around the scars of loss, not trying to escape them. My other bestie, I've always affectionately called Nutter Butter, and as I'm sure you can imagine, it's a silly inside story that has long been forgotten, but the nickname stuck. 2.5 months since Jonathan died, and Nutter Butter visits me every single week. She will just drop by for a hug or make plans to go sit on the beach together or just say, hey, I'm not very far away. Can I just come by? Something manageable that I can handle, because she knows I'm not capable of really making many plans right now. I'm kind of in that fuzzy haze of, I don't know what I want to eat for dinner. And unless my kids make up their mind, I just don't do anything. you know, it's hard to make decisions. It's hard to do the things that are right, the things that I know will be good for me. It's hard for me to talk about Jonathan. And it's not because I don't want to. It's because I don't want to make other people uncomfortable. And Nutter Butter, she brings him up every time I talk to her. Every time I see her, every time we talk on the phone, she will say something like, oh, I saw this man who was smiling at this lady and I thought of you and Jonathan. And, things like that. She understands. She gets it. She knows I think about him every day, hundreds of times. And so when she brings up a happy memory, oh, it's soothing, it's healing, it's validation of, yes, I had something good, I had something real. Mourning his death is not erasing him from my life because he can't be erased. That's what the special people in our lives do. They make this everlasting impact. They don't go away. I don't want him to go away. I want to always remember it's easier to just say yes. So just because I'm not always talking about him doesn't mean that I've stopped thinking about him. It just means that I'm trying to think of other people and their comfort. And Nutter Butter gets that. And she knows I need to talk about him in a safe place where I won't be judged and I won't be making other people uncomfortable. And so when I look at the common denominator between the actions of my two best friends here, they both show a really deep understanding that the messy middle is just that. It's a middle. It's a time that is long and twisted and curving and changing and unpredictable and just, messy. So I wrote the journal, 20 Days Rising from Depression, basically as I was sitting in the hospital hallways with Jonathan. Because healing, it doesn't happen in the pretty moments. It happens right there, in the middle of the mess. The journal is a workbook full of small sparks. It has reflections and journal prompts and ruby steps to take. Tiny things that might not look powerful until you realize how far you've gone. Remember, when you're in the messy middle of the wave, you don't need a map of the entire ocean. You just need to know which way is up. And sometimes that up is as simple as opening the blinds or thinking a happy thought or just writing one honest sentence in your journal. That's what healing in the messy middle looks like. It's not about control. It's about patience, embracing emotions, and courage. And believe me, there are plenty of days where I feel like I have lost all patience and my emotions are out of control and I am terrified of living. And then I have my friends. I always know I can hang on to them. They're like my life preserver out there in the ocean. I told you I talk about the beach a lot. So As a former preschool teacher, I loved doing science experiments with my classes. I would try to do as many hands-on things as I possibly could. Getting flowers to change and making elephant toothpaste. And of course, for the preschool set, making slime. Oh my gosh. They loved it. And I can't tell you how often I would hear parents say this. I'm so glad you're making slime here. You know why they would say that? Because they didn't enjoy making slime at home because slime is messy. You got to get out a bunch of ingredients and they're sticky and you're having to measure things, and these are 5-year-olds, and by nature slimy is slimy stuff, right? It's fun, it's magical, and oh, it's delightful, especially when it's powered by the success of making it yourself. But it does make a mess. I didn't mind because I knew what to expect. I knew it was going to be messy, and I didn't dwell on it. I knew it was going to take a long time, and I knew it was going to take even longer to clean it up. But I didn't try to make as little mess as possible. That would kind of defeat the whole purpose. I let them explore and create because that's what science is about. But that's also what the middle is like. It's not the beginning where I'm just explaining how to make slime, and it's not the after school part where the kids are saying, Mom, look what I made today. It's that messy, crazy middle part where they are throwing things together and trying different things. Some things that work, like adding glitter, is fun, and some things that don't. Adding pine cones is not fun. It's getting slime stuck in hair and food coloring on clothing. It's a mess. But without it, there wouldn't be any fantastical slime to play with, challenging our minds. If I just talk about making it and they just take slime home, they haven't processed anything. The only way to go through the middle is to wade through the mess and make more messes as you go. It may not be pretty. And sometimes I feel like my grief is stuck in my hair and spilled on my clothes, but the only way to get through it is to move forward. So now I'm back at Christmas again. And for being my favorite time of year, it's not this year. It is tender, it's complicated. The lights, the music, the nostalgia. I see a poster for the Nutcracker and I cry because I want to be going to see it with Jonathan. I go by a restaurant that's decorated with lights that makes me think of a time I went there with Jonathan, and it just makes a heavy ache settle in my soul. It's a lot. If that's where you are too, please know it's okay. You're not doing it wrong. You're just in the middle of another wave, and it can seem like 7 seconds is 17 hours. But you don't have to fake joy. You don't have to sparkle. You just have to get through it. Because this wave, like all the others, will pass. This season of My Ruby Slippers is about finding light in that in-between space. These 4 weeks we're talking about depression, healing from loss, abuse, and betrayal, and especially about holding on through that messy, messy middle. Then in January, I'm going to start a new chapter. I will have a new journal out. It's called Burning Through the Lies, a Phoenix's Guide to Extinguishing Gaslighting. Because once we rise from depression, the next stop is to burn through the lies that try to keep us small. We all have lies that we have heard, that we have told ourselves, and our brain has clung on to and repeated. It's time to stop the gaslighting. So if you're listening today and you're in your own messy middle, maybe of grief or depression or just life, I want you to remember this. You might feel trapped in the wave, but you're not lost. You're just in the middle. Hold your breath. Trust the process, because when it passes, and it will, you'll find your footing again. The messy middle isn't the end of your story. It's just the part where you learn how strong you really are. It's when we put on our ruby slippers and walk the yellow brick road of healing together. I want to encourage you to check out this week's 3 o'clock Wednesday article on lilystrong.com. It's 5 ways to soar through depression's messy middle. Also, follow us on Instagram at My Ruby Slippers and Lily. I am putting out daily readings of our journal. You can follow along with us. And I'd love to hear comments. I would love to hear your stories. I'd love to share with everybody. So join me next week as I'm going to bring my besties along for the ride. And until then, remember that the messy middle might feel endless sometimes, but we are walking this yellow brick road together.